So we're going to talk MER today, and I blasted into our CSM Discord an open invite for CSM members to stop by, and I'm very, very, very happy that two of them agreed to join. So we've got Luke Annanen here. You guys know him because he was already here in April on the show. He is from Fraternity, and then we've got Angry Mustache from Goonswarm Federation, and you guys probably all know him anyway. He's been on the show a few times, and he's also a lot on the Meta show. So, Angry, first of all, thanks for choosing us over the Meta show. What happened there?
The meta show's not actually on today.
Oh, it's not. There we go. Look at that. Yeah, that's an easy.
Oh, actually, no, it is on, but uh, well, the
You sent Casimir, didn't
yeah,
you? Yeah.
Casimir's there. So there's two of us. There's no reason for us to be both on the
Right.
same show.
No, that's right. And I actually I always stream at the same time as the Meta Show, which is not it's not a competition. This is the only time I have time. I would not stream at the same time if I could, but yeah. But thanks for stopping by anyway, and Luke for also joining. Let me start before we jump into the MER. Can I get a quick read on your mood, on your EVE Online mood? Because I know we saw some nerves this week that not everyone's happy about. But maybe starting with you, Luke, how is Fraternity feeling, and how are you feeling about EVE Online right now?
I mean, I'm okay. I think fraternity generally are okay. I think there's some concerns around certain things in Equinox, and obviously there's some noise about the late patch notes that came out yesterday and the change that came out yesterday. And no doubt we'll talk about that one later on. I think we're okay. We're now just slowly converting things over and seeing how the system works.
Yeah, yeah, we'll talk about the ninja nerf on Friday that I think came as a surprise for a lot of us. Angry, how about you? How's Goon Swarm? How are you feeling about Eve?
We're not as was sort of expected. And wait, am I? Can anyone hear me?
Yeah, can hear you.
Yeah, they can hear you.
Okay, good. So we sort of expected a change like this because uh w- when we realized the potential, it was like there's no way CP is gonna let this slide for that long. But like we even asked, like, is this a contended behavior? And I think we were expecting the answer is no, but but there was sort of I think a bit of breakdown in communications, and this ended up being the status quo for long enough that people ended up taking action based on the data that was available, and then CCP fixed it. And then one of the really and I guess the crux of the issue is that because of the way the new system works, if you convert, you sort of brick the system,
Yeah.
and that's what got people really mad because you converted for the benefit that seemed to be worth it, and then very soon after you converted, they took that benefit away, and now you're left with a brick system that you cannot uh, restore to functionality, and that's what got people really, really pissed.
Yeah, and I think that's really the main problem that we're seeing here. I mean, besides the fact that, yeah, it's arguably, some people are arguing that it's worse than before, and that's certainly the case for many or most systems. You guys can chime in on that better than I can. But I think the big problem here is that people had a few weeks to make decisions. I saw so many threads of people, getting into I want to say Thundercat ratting, but
Stormbringers.
Stormbringers.
and the Thunder Child is the battleship, right? I like Thundercats better because it reminds me of my childhood. So Thunder Child ratting, and I think a lot of people invested heavily because they thought this was the new meta, and this was
Do you
even
have the price history right now?
the one that you sent me, or of the price
No,
history of the
of the Thunder
Stormbringer.
Child.
Yeah, of the
Stormbringer,
Thunder
yeah.
Child. Yeah, we talked about that last week. I can bring it up too. Here, we'll jump into I'll jump into the game client for that.
Do you think
But yeah,
Thundercats a better name?
as futility says, subbing accounts just to use it, and then nope. Yeah, I think that's the big problem, right? I mean, I 100% understand people that are angry about something like that. All right, here, Thunderchild. Look at this. Right?
Not Thunderchild, Stormbringer. Look at Stormbringer.
The Thunderchild as well. Look at this angry. If you can see it on stream, the Thunderchild went from about 1 billion to then almost 2 billion. And,
yeah, the Stormbringer is even more spiky.
Yeah, because it's cheaper, right? It's much cheaper. Yeah. Yeah, so that went from about 300 million to about double, yeah. Crazy. Yeah. And so people were making decision. Yes, I've heard the bait and switch argument many a times, and this time it's not that they're doing this on purpose, right? It's not I mean, I think for a bait and switch, this would have to be done on purpose, but it's unfortunate.
It's not conscious, right? A bait and switch would have very much been, we'll do this thing knowing we're going to change it, and I don't think that doesn't feel like that's what happened here.
No, I think it was a mistake, but it's very
really
unfortunate.
Like the what's his face, the Parchment change from like I think it was 2 years ago now. Let's see, January 2023. Yeah, that was the Parchment respawn change. And we can actually show that right on the third graph, the 7-day rolling average faucet. You can see see that Parchment dip, and that was an unintended change. That was like that was the 30 that was the 90-minute Parchment respawn, and they all, if I remember correctly, they also rolled that out like on a weekend suddenly, and Parchment people woke up with their ecosystem completely upended because of a bug fix.
Yeah. So somebody is saying, so incompetence rather than malicious reassuring. Yeah, I mean, so nobody knows exactly what happened, right? I mean, it's not like I'm going to wager to say it's not like nobody brought this up to CCP at some point, right? That whether this was intended or not, you know.
Well, it's also strange they did it on a Friday rather than the normal Tuesday patch cycle.
Well, it sounds to me like somebody, possibly higher up, I don't know, somebody at CCP decided, hey, this is serious. We got to fix this sooner rather than later. And I think it just took them a little bit too long to make that decision. They should have fixed it. If they wanted to fix it, they should have fixed it a week ago, right? Or 2 weeks ago, ideally.
I mean, the patch notes say an issue, right? So this is like the challenge here is this was definitely brought up, right? Like I've seen numerous public discords with people in the community going, are you 100% sure this is what's meant to happen? This feels like instant respawns is pretty extreme. And then, apparently after a couple of weeks of that being a thing, decided, this is an issue, we need to change this immediately outside of our normal patch schedule. Which is...
What did they say? Test on prod?
Yeah, test on live.
I mean, yeah, and then it's too easy for Reddit to fall into, and they turned the test server off, and this is all. I mean, and I, this time around, I think it's just a straight up PR crisis that right now is going on, because this time I absolutely feel people that are angry right now. I think it's probably a little bit over the top, but I do feel for a lot of people. But yeah, let's jump into the monthly economic report. So this, just to to get people on the same page, this is the economic data from EVE Online. It comes out every month at the beginning of the month, and we can not only have these slides and analyze these slides, but we can also download the underlying data behind it. So I know Angry is always there to download the data and create his own graphs. He brought some of them with him along. And then also what we have, and Luke, I don't know if you know this, Angry, I know I've shown you before, but we, thanks to our friend Matthew, we also have this whole thing in Power BI. So later on, I'm going to switch to Power BI to look at some of the data in there, because it's good to see historic graphs on some of these where we don't have historic graphs in the PowerPoint. So starting with the first graph is production versus destruction versus mining. And I think one thing that strikes me here, and I don't know, Angry Luke, how you see it, but I expected production to be higher. Actually, I mean, we were at 5-year high production levels before the expansion hit, but the expansion itself didn't really do anything to production at all. If anything, it dropped production, right? And I would have expected the new ships at least and the skyhooks, etc., to have a bigger impact. Why do you think that is, Angry?
I actually don't know. Perhaps it was maybe maybe it's because of the net resonators, because unlike so one of the changes that came with Equinox is that pirate ships had their secondary component changed from Neuralink conduits to net resonators,
Yeah,
and unlike Neuralink conduits, net resonators don't have to be manufactured. You buy them
right.
off the LP store and then use them directly. So Neuralinks are are a 3-step process. You react. Yeah, it's a 3-step process. There's two sub reactions and the Neuralink itself. So and the fuel blocks. So a Neuralink that ends up costing like 16 million probably uh requires some like 30-40 million in production numbers. So that would make sense that um that the net amount of production required in a pirate ship would go down significantly with that change.
Yeah,
So
I totally like that's a very plausible explanation. I mean, there are a lot of faction ships being produced out there. It's a big part of the production. Even then, even then, it would be kind of strange that there's basically not even a blip, right? It basically just goes through, and then apparently, you know, somehow the two components of an expansion hitting and new ships hitting and this big other change kind of ended up being the same. I just found this kind of strange, but hey, we'll know
Was
next month.
Was
Look,
there much of a stockpile dump with the patch announced? I just wonder if maybe there was a blip because loads of people dumped all their stuff because they thought Null was going to get a lot more minerals and materials to be mined off, and so they dumped their stockpiles and then slowed down, waiting to see the new system hit, and that didn't really get
possibly,
the way.
but at least the new ships weren't possible. It wasn't possible to build them, right? And I've looked at some of the markets, and like at least for the Squall and the Torrent, the Avalanche, they have all quite big markets. So I know there were a lot of them produced, but maybe it's just not enough to make a blip overall. But even all the skyhooks and everything needs to be produced, right? But yeah, mining is down, and you know, if you look at chat right now, everyone's going to tell you, well, that's because anomalies are worse than they were before overall. Now, or asteroids are only part of this mining, but overall,
I don't think it's in yet. You can't see the first day where we could actually convert was the 26th.
yeah, okay,
Correct me if I'm wrong. So you can't see it in the June one, and mining. The players very quickly discovered that mining was nerfed to oblivion. So yeah, so nobody converted their mining systems. Like you converted one to test, and then you didn't. So the vast majority of mining is still on the old system. But what might have happened is if you look at gas prices,
yeah,
I think if there's a drop in
gas has dropped
MICO,
40%. Yeah,
and that could account because CCP does do accurate refined value for mining now. That
yeah.
drop in mining could have just came from the slide in gas prices.
That's definitely going to have an impact. But if that is correct, then what I would expect to see in July is a pretty massive additional drop from this in total value mined, for sure. What's still intact though? I mean, we're talking about asteroids mostly, right? So we're moon mining is intact, right? Ice mining is intact, and that all goes in there.
Well, the other
If
thing is,
Yep.
the other thing is, right, would we expect Mungu to slide? Because even though they're really, really expensive right now, as more metanoxes come out, like metanoxes make mining marginal moons a lot
Mhm.
more viable than doing so to what's his fit
Yeah.
than trying to uh
Buy it on
manually
the low
mine them
end.
right now.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I before Equinox hit, I would have expected overall moon ore to drop. We saw an increase, in a pretty significant increase in moon ore prices right after and right before the expansion, but that's just because people were producing a lot of a lot of stuff that needed the moon ore, and so there was enough demand for it. Right now, overall moon ore is trading at around 52-week average. So there hasn't been a drop at all from the Equinox expansion. So I think you're right. I think we should probably see I don't know, a 10% or so drop over the next month or two. What do you think?
I don't know. I don't make number predictions like that.
Yeah, I do. This is my life.
I
All
think
right.
I think it'll be interesting to see what the destruction is of Metanox moon drills and see how that factors it out, right? If people lose them, then they might not drop them again.
Yeah, and it's not going to be. It's only going to be for certain moon ores, right? For a lot of them, it's not. It's just not going to be relevant. By the way, thank you, Crota, for gifting all those subs. I just calling you out, man, as usual. Amazing. If we look at the specific types, mine, so asteroid ore is the one that dropped the most, and that, as you rightly say, Angry, that doesn't have that much to do with the expansion yet, because not enough systems have switched over yet. But it's obvious that there was already a big impact from ore mined, in the latter part of the month. So here, you see overall, you see, if you go, let me go here so I can point. So here, this is probably where systems started switching over, right? Because this is June, and this is the last week of June. So we do see a significant drop in the ore mined.
I don't think I don't think the impact is I don't think that's from that. It could just be from nullsec. Well, I don't think the impact is from that. It would have been too many that would have been too many systems switched over when we know that there's only a handful of systems switching, yeah.
Yeah, but it is kind of significant here. We have a 25% drop, like, for the last week of June, and this might just be people coming back, trying the expansion, and leaving again, possibly, right? Maybe. If we look at where things are where ore is mined, Angry. I'm actually in the way of the most important part of this. Let me hide my camera. Look at this. Delve 6 billion M3 a day. No, overall. All right. Way to go, Angry. Good stuff. You guys are mining.
Well, because there's nothing better to mine. Delve's not exactly
Is
It's
that
more than
consistent
everyone
with
else.
May as well? I can't remember what May's,
I think it's
like if you
much.
compare
I think it's
everywhere.
much higher than May. I think you were number one too, but I think it's the difference is much higher. But we can check. Gas is dropping overall. You were hinting at that earlier, Angry. We had gas removed from basically all faction ship BPCs. So not only does the demand drop, but naturally also the price, and so there will be just less and less gas mined overall in almost all parts of space. Maybe less so in wormhole space, but in
hopefully
low sec, and
they'll
high sec.
follow up with some changes that restore the demand for low sec gas, because that actually is a very healthy environment, and expensive gas does benefit newbies because it's not as scalable and it's a better activity for them. We have
Yeah,
a couple plans. Hopefully you listen.
yeah. So I think I mean, right now, like the biggest demand drivers would be capitals, right? Capitals would be a big demand driver if we did have them, faction capitals specifically, right? For gas that are left.
Yeah, I think capitals would be the primary driver for Myco.
Yeah, because they used to be in all faction subcaps as well. Those are gone now, and so right now overall faction capitals are incredibly expensive. So, you know, I think if those prices came down a little bit by whatever means we can concoct, then that would be another demand driver for gas. And now there isn't really something in the way. This wouldn't be first in line for to be the next bottleneck as it was before, right? I mean, in the last years there were several times where gases were the bottlenecks to faction ship supplies, right?
Yeah, well, here's the thing though. It's not exactly a great replacement because faction caps don't use much gas in the first place. Like a Balgorn used to use 16. A Chemosh uses 8. So
Mm-hmm.
you have to build 2 Chemoshes to use the same as a Balgorn, and the demand isn't there. Like
Yeah,
there's not that many. There's just not that many Chemosh blueprints in the wild.
I you know, now I'm not speaking as a CSM representative here, but I'm speaking as the market guy, Oz, right? Looking at this system overall and the huge difference in demand for gas pre-Equinox and post-Equinox, I would have to think that at some point there's got to be a new source of demand. And I you know, like this sets CCP up for an expansion or new content to be introduced that can, you know, rely more heavily on gas again without it being a huge chunk of the market like faction ships, right? But right now the demand for this compared to the supply is ridiculously low, right? All right.
Yeah.
Sorry, you want to say something? Ice Mind is up, but you know, fairly consistent to what we were seeing before. And let's see. Beerman says, "Oh, another false promise of great things coming." I look, I can't promise anything because I'm not CCP. You know, I can wish as a player for things to come. Let's see. Let's move into sinks and faucets, which is the most interesting part of this, if you ask me. So if we look at sinks and faucets overall, I want to move over to the Power BI for a second, because let's look at faucets first, right? This is a historical look at what the faucets looked like for EVE Online, right? And so you can see one thing clearly: faucets have been increasing, okay, right? Which if you listen to the player base, you wouldn't think that, but it is. On the other hand, you can see that June faucets were equal to May, so that is you know, that is something. I know that the ratting, the Thunderchild ratting we were talking about earlier is probably, you know, it wouldn't have been enough time to have a huge impact on this, but it's clear that June versus May, there wasn't a huge difference in the faucets. Now, if you look at the faucets specifically, you see that, yes, Wormhole Blue Loot is down in faucets from around 20 trillion to 15 trillion. I'll show you the graph right in a second. And bounties overall are up. And those two, you know, cancel each other out a little bit, and then you end up in the same place. If you look at sinks on the other hand, are much higher. So on the one hand, we did have a bunch of skill books, new skills to be bought, and BPCs to be bought that sync a little bit based on the new expansion. So that is good. But on the other hand, the other difference is also often the active ISK delta, and the active ISK delta is the difference of people leaving and returning to the game, and that is why typically when you see an expansion coming out, you see this green bump right here because it's people returning to the game that weren't active because they're trying the new expansion. That is what always happens. What's massively interesting here, though, is that the bump is very small for Equinox.
Well,
here.
what's the feature to be excited about? They're unfortunately
Reinvigoration of null. What do you mean, Angry?
Feel very reinvigorated.
Yeah. No, but go ahead, Angry.
Yeah, that's. I mean, we know why the bump is not as big as it should be.
Yeah, it is. It's not. I would have expected that bump to be bigger, and especially comparing it to November. I mean, in November, we also like November was Zarzak, right? I get these mixed up all the time. Like November was Havoc.
That was Zarzak, yeah.
Yeah. But November wasn't the massive faction warfare. Faction warfare happened before, right? The big change to faction warfare. There was already
June. Yeah, that was so that was the bump you see in May 2023.
Yeah, this one right here. So both of those pulled more players in. On the other hand, you could say maybe fewer players left in between, right? Although the red bars here would indicate that possibly they aren't. Now, one thing that also goes in here is bans or GM actions, they call it. And so, that CCP does that to keep these numbers a little bit fuzzy. But overall, it's a pretty good indicator that there wasn't a huge amount of people coming back for this expansion. Another thing about the sinks and faucets. Yeah, sure. Angry, go ahead.
Of course, the other feature Skinner, who's excited for Skinner to come back and make your skins and then sell them at a 30% broker fee.
Yeah. I think the system, the way that they implemented the system is just bad. I mean, they are too expensive. I don't mind the skills and everything. I don't, I mean, people need to spend their time on some skills, right? But overall, they're too expensive, and honestly, based on all of the skins already in the game, there needs to be a huge differentiation factor here. One, either if they want it to be a career, you need to really be able to produce these at scale and then reduce your cost over time, or because kind of like people are maining industry and production. But if they're going to be that expensive and people are going to have to cough up plex to buy them, and you won't be able to distribute them easily to your corp mates, then this is not going to fly. I mean, we can just hope they're going to iterate on it, but iterating on it, they would have to do a lot. Do you guys see people, like, are your corp mates using them, the Skinner skins?
I know a couple people
using turned off, but... so I don't know.
Luke?
Yeah, I know. I mean, I know there are some people that are using them, but it's not the wholesale take up that I think CCP were expecting.
Yeah, no, I cannot. I would not expect the uptake to be anywhere close to what CCP was hoping for. So I think, yeah, as Golden says, they did iterate. They added more skills. Yeah. All right, let's look at the different faucets, because here we do see a big impact. Yeah. We see sleeper components down. So finally, there was an impact on C5, C6 blue loot income. I don't know if it's in the magnitude that CCP was hoping, and I know that the hope of seeing more capitals in space by the changes in C5 and C6 ratting, to my understanding, that that hasn't been as successful. But what did happen was a 25% drop in blue loot. So more or less successful. Angry, what do you think?
I sent you a graph. Can you bring up the one that says rolling 7-day ship losses?
Yeah, this one,
Let me see if it shows up on stream.
rolling average commodity ship losses. There you go. This is the one. Found it.
There we go. So what we found, so this is wormholes only. So it's showing the category losses of 3 ships in wormholes, marauders, which is what everyone actually uses to PvE, dreadnoughts, and carriers, which are generally used to trigger capital escalations. So
Yeah.
what you notice is after the patch, there's a drop in marauders, and then it comes right back up when people realize nothing really changed.
Yeah.
And there's no real movement in the losses, which is a proxy for usage of dreadnoughts. So
We have
people want
fewer
that.
dreadnought losses post expansion. Fewer.
Yeah. So what people figured out was you just keep roaching and you don't do the capital escalation.
Yeah.
So I think that change did not quite have the effect it was hoping for, but uh, it did drop blue loot temporary. I don't know if it's temporary or will be a slightly longer term thing while people adapted to the change. And if we go back to the commodity, I think we can already see that it's starting to climb back up in the last weeks of June.
Yeah, not nearly where it was before though. So at least like, yeah. Overall, if we look at the overall blue loot, we have that graph in here, right? Let me just fast forward a little bit. Overall, we can see that there it is. That we dropped from it was right around 19-20 trillion the last month, the C5 C6 income, and now it's around 15 trillion. So it's about a 20% drop. If that is persistent, then that wouldn't be an indicator of people using different tactics. It would be an indicator of the loot having changed, I'm guessing, which they also, I know they did mess with. So
They didn't actually mess with that. It was that was
didn't they
they
shift
didn't.
some of the loot to,
Uh,
to different ships?
no, they did not do that.
Okay.
They changed the spawn patterns, but they did not shift the loot, which is
Oh, okay.
what
Yeah.
the other half of the change that we wanted to get implemented.
Yeah, all right.
It would have been that you would have seen the difference at that point on that one.
Yeah, you would hope so. But I'm guessing they that CCP will still, they will still want to go out and iterate on that change as well.
I have another one. So on the sinks and faucets,
Yeah.
I have a version that the third one I sent you, and this is one that actually sort of hides stuff because in this one you don't see home fronts. Home fronts are not in because home fronts are split into 4 separate categories. So
Yeah.
none of the individual home fronts make it into top 8 sinks and faucets over time. But if you combine them, they actually do. So if you can bring
Yeah,
up the one I have about the
I'm
7-day
pulling up
rolling average faucets.
your graph right now. Hold on, give me a second. So you're talking about this one right here, which is yeah, okay.
So at the very bottom, you see this line starting in July 2023. That's all home fronts combined.
Yeah.
So so what people haven't realized is that home fronts are actually a very large relative ISK faucet that's not visible in the MER because it's being split into 4 pieces for the 4 factions. So right now, home fronts are printing like a third of Potchman, actually closer to half of Potchman, and Potchman's a lot, and home fronts haven't really been nerfed. So I mean, they got a slight nerf you see at the bottom there, but they're They are completely riskless. They are heavily botted, and they've just been quietly printing like 8-9 trillion to the economy, uh, contributing to the ISK faucet without
Yeah.
contributing to any actual content.
I mean, says you who lives in Null, but I'm sure they would disagree that they would be not creating content. But I see your point for sure. I mean, they are ships in space. I don't know if that's like, what would you say to the non-null people, right? What would you say is the big difference between people multi-boxing home fronts and people
Nothing
doing
dies.
Thunder Child ratting?
Things do not die in home fronts. Like, that's the big difference, because if you do stuff in null, stuff actually does die, because the destruction to print ratio in nulls generally hovers around 3.5 to 4 to 1, which means, like, you make 300 million ISK in null on average. Sometime, somewhere, another 100 million ISK and stuff dies. Homefront, you make 8 trillion ISK, and I don't know how much stuff actually dies in the process of running Homefronts, but I'm willing to bet it's close to zero, or damn near, because it's all in high sec. Like, unless you mess up and somehow die to the NPCs, which CCP is especially balancing for you to not die to NPCs.
Yeah.
Well, like, because it's supposed to be tutorial content, right?
And I think that brings us back to where we started. I think one of the big issues with the patch on Friday was that it feels like CCP fixed an ISK printer in null, right? That was clearly not as bad as the ISK printer we have in Pochven and that we still have in C5 and C6 wormholes, right? And the one in null is arguably less worse because it is spread among more people. Would you agree?
Ooh, that's a pretty inflammatory comment. I still think they should have. I still think they would have nerfed eventually, but that part of the reason why people in the null pilots got so mad is that they got something good and it got hot fixed in like a few weeks. Whereas if you look at Pochven is up to 20 trillion a month now. It's like close to it's like a third of null, but it's like maybe 100 people actually real people doing it. And whereas Homefront is is tons of bots doing it, and neither of those have gotten significant attention despite how much they print.
Well, I think wormholes would disagree. They're saying we just got some attention they didn't want in the Equinox patch, but yeah. Which clearly, at least it dropped Wooloo down 20% for whatever reason, right? We did see a drop, but yeah, I do think my opinion is that that's the main problem with the patch on Friday, is that they fixed that mistake. So if you call that a mistake, they fixed that mistake really, really quickly. And I would categorize the ISK printing in Pochven and C5, C6 wormholes as also a mistake. But clearly CCP does not see those as mistakes. They see those as working as intended or on the to-do list, but not as urgent as fixing Thunderchild ratting. Right.
What they actually mean is just returning null to ratting with Ishtars, because
Yeah.
why would you go and take out Thunderchilds or Stormbringers anymore? We might as well just go back to Ishtars.
That's
kind
because
of feels
that's
like
what
it was
you guys
against
do.
the point, right?
But that's what you guys do, Ishtars, right? I mean, if you look at the numbers, clearly, Ishtars is the mean. The mean, what do you do? All right. Having said that, let's return here. I wanted to talk about one thing, and that is money supply. Money supply is really high, right? And so, if we're saying, if Nullsec is complaining that 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 they're not getting enough of the pie, which is what I'm hearing, but the money supply is increasing. There's more is going around. It's just not ending up in null, so it's ending up in in wormhole pockets? Is that what we're saying? In parchment pockets? Angry, are not some of the parchment people the same as null people? Is my question.
They are. I run stuff in Parchment. I don't rat.
You're part of the problem then.
I am part of the problem.
But isn't the issue here though?
Look, if
It's not more
CCP,
risk, right?
if it's clear that CCP has a favorite child that they're not gonna touch, you're a dumbass if you don't exploit it while it's exploitable.
Luke?
I mean, you're right, and I mean, I do some stuff in Podfriend as well. I think isn't the issue here? It's not that there's more money. It's not more ISK. It's where that ISK is coming from and the balance of different parts of space, right? Because yeah, as Angry's point, right, Podfriend is the favorite child, and it's the one that you're going to exploit. But obviously, with the reinvigoration of nullsec, it's like, okay, well, we're going to maybe bring more ISK to be generated in that sector of space. That's the issue, is it didn't happen, right?
The thing is, no matter where it comes from, it has a real economic impact. If you are printing this much ISK, that will eventually drive prices up for everyone. So if you're not profiting from the ISK printer, then you're the one on the losing end. And typically, that's going to be newer players, right? I mean, that's going to be single boxing players. It's going to be newer players. So that's that is, I know that is a CCP concern, is increasing money supply. We've seen this before, and this is, I think this is a huge issue, because if you ask 99% of EVE players out there, I think they don't realize that the money supply is increasing overall, because everyone will tell you there's scarcity, nobody has ISK, everything is expensive. But the reason that everything is expensive is because ISK is still being printed. It's just going into very few pockets, right? I mean, this is space capitalism, rigged space capitalism. That's the problem. All right. Anything else on this? Oh yeah, the velocity of ISK. So hey, I mean, that's the one good thing of in the last 6 months, right? I mean, we hadn't seen increasing ISK velocity, so the rate at which the ISK out there exchanges hands, we haven't seen that increase in a long time, and now we're actually starting to see an upward trend, which you can't deny is a pretty good thing, right? Angry?
I don't see the upward trend, because the one that really matters is the pink one. It's velocity without contracts and Plex related items. Because
Correct.
you can always pump up its velocity by doing a Plex sale, and you see.
No, it's true.
Well, yeah. So there was one in May, so there's that, and there was another one in September. So what you're seeing is just Plex sales.
Yes, except that the problem that I have with this graph is that Plex is one thing, but contracts to me are absolutely part of the economy, right? So I would just like to see a graph in here that is including contracts but excluding Plex. I think that would be the real graph, right? But I point taken. We're seeing a lot of Plex exchange hands, which is pushing ISK velocity. Do we have any other graphs? I mean, all right, economic indices. The one message here is that minerals are still crazy expensive. Most of this is because of megasite and isogen, if you look at the historic graphs here. But that's really only keeping, battleships and capitals high, right? Everything else, tier 1 ships are not really a pricing issue below battleships. And tier 2 is driven much more by moon ores. So the mineral pricing is mainly a capital problem, right, Angry?
Yeah, well, certain capitals. Red dots aren't that bad, but supers and titans are really isogen dependent, and of course, T1 basic T1 battleships are the other victim, and they're not exactly that good, because if you look at the composition of fleets right now in people who use battleships, it's all Navy. Like, Luke, do you guys even accept regular Tempests in your TFI fleets?
No. I think we should have separate Tempest fleets occasionally, but no, we don't.
You don't accept regular Tempest and TFI fleets. You don't accept Ravens and Raven Navy fleets. You don't accept if you're doing something, you're doing in a Navy battleship because the price premium over a regular battleship is negligible, but the performance
Yeah, it's
advantage is
disproportionate for
massive.
the price increase, right?
Now I'm sure that CCP. I mean, I'm convinced one reason CCP introduced the whole, I can decide which asteroids appear in my null space is to drive down the price of isogen. But from what I gather from you guys and other null people is that the anomalies are just in the current state never going to be good enough to drive the price of isogen down. Is that a fair assessment? Angry?
Let me look at the numbers here. Okay, so one of the new sites, if you mined it out completely of isogen, will get you 4 battleships. And then it takes 6 hours to respawn. So have fun with that. And if you install this upgrade, you brick your system because you cannot put anything else in it. It's too power hungry. So I don't think what they aimed at is gonna do it.
Yeah. But then, CCP nowadays says that they're going to iterate quickly, but they are careful in the beginning. So that's certainly what we're seeing here. But at this point, it's not going to move the needle at all on the mineral prices. And I mean, from everything, from all interviews I've done before, I gotta believe that CCP has a big interest to drive, especially isogen down because it is just creating issues that nobody wants. Like the isogen shortage is helping no one right now, right? Luke, are you seeing the same in your space with the anomalies, or are you are you involved in
No,
those decisions?
only. I mean, we put some down, and we're looking at what there. We haven't put any more down at this point because, as Angry already said, you put it down, you brick your system. There's other space we could go and find those minerals. Now, obviously, there's a slight difference because of some of the time zone coverage. So there's areas of space in other sectors of space where people can go and mine that relatively unmolested during their time zones. But yeah, we're not putting any down because the power drain on the system is just too high when there are other options.
Yeah, other options being like nullsec or lowsec or
Yeah, exactly that. Yeah.
yeah. So one final question for me, and that is if if mineral prices are this high, right? And mining overall, like asteroid mining, I don't think anyone besides possibly lowsec, I don't think anyone is saying right now that mining is worth it. Then that's just an overall design problem, right? Because it seems like mineral prices are high, but nobody cares. Or is that just because nobody's building the capitals? So that's a catch-22.
Catch-22, right? Minerals are expensive, which means no one's building the capitals, and nobody's building the capitals, which no one's using the capitals, which means there's no demand for them, which nobody therefore nobody mines. It turns into a
So we,
into a bit of a vicious
I have a
spiral,
quite
right?
different perspective, which is that people are mining, but the thing is that it's they're not mining at how should I say this? In order to get isogen, you need to pay your miners at low sec man hour prices, and low sec man hours are expensive. Whereas null sec man powers are null sec man hours are cheap. So yeah, there is a point to having low sec mining be more profitable, but I don't think it should not be bottlenecking isogen. It should be bottlenecking something else that's higher up on the product value chain. So again, like I said, gas is a good example, but whoops, we tanked gas. Um, and if right now, if you if you tank isogen as well, it actually does make low sec mining very crap. So so the two things we need to do, right, at least priorities to push, is to number one, get a replacement gas demand source for low sec miners, and number two, get a replacement demand source for wormhole and low sec isogen miners right now. So but higher up the value chain, so they are providing things for other power ships. Preferably capitals, maybe something else. So I think we've got 2 months in our term left, so that's what I'm going to be trying to push for in terms of restoring some value to low sec and wormhole mining and relieving the isogen bottleneck at the same time.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds to me like, I mean, there's some people out there that are going to mine no matter what, right? They're going to mine possibly the best value out there, but if everything is shit, they're still going to mine, right? And so that keeps
You've
is one
discovered the
thing.
secret to delve asteroid mining.
Yeah,
There's got to be.
that's keeping your man hours down, your prices down in nullsec. That and the higher security allowing for massive multiboxing, which you don't have in low sec, right? That those two things are keeping your prices down in Delph or in nullsec overall, right? Angry?
Yeah, I would say that's about right.
Yeah. Okay. I think that's all I had. Is there anything else you guys wanted to mention, talk about, say?
I think I'm
Nothing.
good. I'm not going to go on the tirade around Equinox in general. I think that's been done a couple of places now.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I think I saw a comment today on Reddit, which yes, I do read. Uh, I feel it's part of my duty, even though it's unhealthy. That says, "Oh, look, you know, I haven't seen a single post from the CSM in Outrage." I don't know if I speak for all of you guys, but guys, we care. It's not that we don't care. It's just we don't focus our energy on Reddit, right? Instead, we try to focus our energy on communicating what we think is wrong to CCP, and so, you know, trust me, everyone on the CSM understands the severity of the situation, and we are working together to find good solutions for the player base.
I think Lilla Power actually kind of hits the nail on the head in terms of some of my frustrations. Is this is still a video game. It should be enjoyable. It should be fun, and a lot of what come out in Equinox takes levels of that away. Right? It's like you can't have this now. Your system is bricked. Mining is tedious because the rocks are too small. That's to me one of the bigger problems. Ignoring everything else, and there are other people that have, you know, more information and are more versed in the subject, like Angry, for example. I think a lot of the Equinox stuff is just, why would I play it? Where's my enjoyment per hour?
I 100% agree. I think that because of what happened 6 years ago, CCP is incredibly scared now to, you know, to open up those floodgates, and their reaction has just been way too careful. I think they can make some errors here and there, like the Thunderchild error they just did, like the instant respawn. Like they can make some of those errors, and if it's fun, then leave it in for a while, right? Until you replace it with something else fun, because this community deserves a few errors on the faucet side for sure. All right, thank you, Luke. Thank you, Angry, for stopping by. It's been a pleasure. I would love to have you back anytime. I think I'm going to do this every month now for the MER discussion, to invite people. So we'd love to see you guys again. Thanks for stopping by, and have a good evening.